23. The 21 wins is the most for the Sparks since winning 22 games in 2019. Impressive game for Las Vegas. They set a single-game WNBA record with 22 three-pointers. The Angels lost to Seattle 7-6 in 12 innings. Angel star Mike Trout hit his 399th career homer. The 15-year veteran has 15 games left in the regular season to reach 400. The Dodgers start a 3-game series tonight at San Francisco. The Dodgers have won 4 straight. They lead San Diego by 2.5 games in the NL West. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
I need $1 or maybe about 12 trillion would be good. I'm joined in studio, my favorite thing, by my colleague. He's a national leader for Braver Angels, a former nominee for Congress, former vice chairman of the Republican Party of Los Angeles County. He's also a musical artist. We'll have to get into that one day on another show. A writer and a speaker on subjects including political and racial reconciliation. John Wood Jr., welcome.
Dominique, hi.
I don't think you've ever done a Freedmen Friday before.
Yeah, haven't I?
No, we've never talked about reparations, have we?
What are you talking about? We've talked about reparations about 17 times.
Oh, but I mean,
maybe
like
not on this
whole
particular
conversation about reparations.
Oh, the whole conversation is about reparations?
Yeah.
Oh, I probably should have done some research. Yeah.
Okay,
I might get beat up today.
No.
Let's see.
Well, I just wanted, the idea is to get different perspectives. We've been doing this almost 2 years every Friday.
Right.
And we've had people from all different camps, people that are vehemently against reparations, the various different camps that are working for reparations.
Yeah, right.
And I always appreciate your being open to joust and battle. I have to ask you, though, because Braver Angels is all about more, I don't know, how do you say it? More decent, more calm discourse politically, even when we disagree.
Yeah. I mean,
whether it's reparations or race or whatever it is. And I know this Charlie Kirk situation has got to be weighing heavily on your organization, Braver Angels, and yourself.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I'm national ambassador for Braver Angels. It's America's largest grassroots group seeking, which you could call it political depolarization, but really just trying to either rebuild or build anew, in many cases, a culture of trust, civility, and goodwill between the American people, regardless of your political party, regardless of your race, religion, or creed, right? And this incident was profoundly tragic, really, on at least two levels. I mean, level number one is just that Charlie Kirk was a human being. I didn't know Charlie personally. I had a lot of mutual connections to Charlie Kirk. I was in the same place at the same time as him, but never really communicated with him. More recently, I was very critical of Charlie Kirk. I had a lot of disagreements, and I'm a Republican. I identify as a conservative. I'm not a pro-Trump Republican conservative, so politically at this point I'm kind of independent, but I'm still a registered Republican. And I was very critical of Charlie Kirk, in particular of his criticisms of Martin Luther King Jr. And there's some irony in this to get to. But and I was on Tavis's show after Charlie sort of launched this campaign of critique against Dr. King, and I just felt like Charlie didn't really understand the King legacy and some of the facts around King at all. But I always admired Charlie Kirk on one specific level, which was the fact that Charlie, like yourself, Dominique, always showed up for the conversation, was willing to engage people who disagreed with him. Fundamentally, that's really how he built his reputation. And so whether I liked what he was saying or not, I always respected the fact that he was able to engage across differences, and he was able to make friends with Democrats. And so this gets to the second tragedy, which is that in an age in which our ability to engage with each other, even our own family sometimes across some of these disagreements,
what Democrats was Charlie Kirk friends with?
Well, just if I can just complete this point, I can circle back to that. In an age where our ability to engage across disagreements, even within our own families, are declining, the fact that Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while on a college campus attempting to do precisely that has, particularly for a lot of people on the right and young people, the young men on the right who are already kind of on the edge in many cases, I think has the potential to push them deeper into a radicalization against the idea that there's any point in engaging in discourse, and maybe we should fight fire with fire, return violence with violence.
It's already happening, as you can see, the threats on the HBCUs.
Yeah,
as I shared earlier.
I didn't see that, but I'll believe whatever you tell me.
Well, a bunch of the HBCUs are on lockdown because of bomb threats, terror threats, and then a friend of mine got beat up by people. Like a big crowd of people, white people, citing Charlie Kirk. So it's already happening. And I don't want to veer off into doing a whole show about this, but some of the young people in my life point out that much like some others, he liked to debate college students who were, not as intellectually, who are young. Well, that you have an intellectual advantage over. That would be like me going and debating college students all day.
It was important. Well, two things. I mean, one, he did debate his peers. We had him. He was on with very recently, of course. We saw him on with Gavin Newsom in a very well publicized conversation. And I saw him with Cenk Uygur.
Yeah, that's true.
You can go down a long list.
But Gavin wasn't really debating. He was his guest on his podcast.
Well, no, but they were going back. They were going back and forth. It was amicable to be sure. But the thing to remember about Charlie Kirk, and this
I want to see him.
This is the other thing. Charlie, you say beaten down on college students, but actually Charlie Kirk was basically college age for his.
He's 31.
He was 31 when he died.
Yeah,
but Charlie Kirk built Turning Point USA as a college student, right? So I mean, the people we saw him debating, last week. He was debating 10 years ago, in similar fashion.
I get that, but 10 years ago, anyway. So I can see what you're saying, and I think it's a dangerous moment for many of the same reasons, which is people can use it as an excuse to go into their silo, to go to their corner, or to physically attack one another instead of
Some people don't need much of an excuse to do something wild, and this is a big excuse.
We don't. I mean, John Wood Jr. and I don't agree on a lot of stuff politically. We agree on things in terms of community building and wealth building and decency in the way we relate to each other, whether we agree or don't agree.
That's right.
But we don't. I think we're able to listen to each other while we disagree.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what we got. I think that's what we have to be able to get back to.
No, it is, and I think that right and left, the fundamental thing that's scary about the era in which we live in, and that I do think explains the rise of certain folks in our politics, does come in the fact that we've kind of forgotten that fundamental. We've forgotten that conversation rests upon the strength of human relationships, which have to be resilient in the face of disagreement, because relationship cannot be based upon agreement, right? And you don't have to be everybody's best friend.
You can never be married if it always had to be agreement.
Well, right, exactly, right? And there are different types of relationships that we have in life.
Yeah.
Some people we're very close to. Most people we're never going to be that close to, but we still got to be able to work with or at least live alongside. So there's different degrees of removal, but at the end of the day, what's universal is the need to have some baseline level of goodwill that allows us to function in communication, to navigate the things that would otherwise divide us, because the one and only alternative long term to conversation and a culture of basic social trust is violence. So
and that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
John Wood Jr., where are you on reparations on the most basic level? Do you believe it's something that's owed to Black Americans? Do you believe that in any increment of it, or are you opposed to it? Which is what I found with most Republicans that I've spoken to on this issue. They're just against it.
Yeah, right. Can I get complicated?
You are complicated. I don't know if you can get simple.
Can I get complicated?
As long as it doesn't include tap dancing, I'm good.
Okay, that is no tap dancing. That is the wrap on me. I do think that things are complicated. I don't think I'm just making them complicated, but I will say, okay, fundamentally, I don't know that I believe in a cash-based direct reparations on the basis of being descended from slaves. So if that is the only definition of reparations on the table...
It isn't. Have you seen the California Task Force report? It's not just enslavement, it's Jim Crow and the subsequent harms and badges of enslavement.
Right. And by the way, Dominique, you will definitely be able to educate me on a lot of the active initiatives and so forth in the state of California and beyond. I don't want to pretend to be an expert in terms of the history of the advocacy for reparations, some of the politics surrounding it. But to give you my intellectual and philosophical perspective, rooted in part on a pretty substantial research into our own history as a country and as African Americans and so forth, what I do believe in is a broad-scale overhaul of our political and economic agenda that I would like to see ultimately be bipartisan and extend really beyond politics to the level of civil society, including the commercial and philanthropic sectors.
Does that overhaul close the wealth gap?
Well, it was just to finish my multi-clausal statement. That centers the development of Black communities in a way that fosters the flourishing of Black people, particularly poor and vulnerable Black people, so that we do not have to deal with a gap on the level of life outcomes in education, in life expectancy, in ability to provide for our families and live in peace. Right. So, to me, that's the best way to look at things. I'm not saying that the wealth gap is not important as an indicator of many things, but I think that the most important thing is always quality of life. And I think that because of the legacy and the history of not just slavery, but a larger history of racial inequity in our society, actual quality of life on a material level, which also means on a social and psychological level, tacking on to that, is in epidemic is essentially instantiated into so much of the structure of American society because of that history. And so I think that our politics should respond to that reality. So, I see that as trying to get at what reparations, I think, in its essence, is trying to get at. Now, I do have criticisms of the way we think about reparations, so maybe we could get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that when we come forward. Yeah. We're talking with John Wood Jr. It is a Freedmen Friday. It's Freedmen Friday every Friday around here. Want to talk about the debt and all the complications that Mr. Wood will bring in when we continue on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now.
800-550-9651.
Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call
800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Okay, we're talking about reparations. I'm not going to drag me down this rabbit hole, but with the phones, they really want to talk to you about Charlie Kirk. And I understand because we have a Republican in the studio, and they're pushing back on some of what you're saying.
That's fine. No,
Next hour, phone lines are open if you want to call. And they're open now if you want to call, by the way, too. But we're going to focus on reparations because that's what we do on Fridays, 800-920-1580. Next hour, we talk about whatever you want the whole time. One comment, though, that is focused on reparations is someone who calls himself LA in the chat says the Native Americans, Jews, and Asians, I guess they're referring to Japanese Americans, got reparations in cash. And I feel like cash reparation has become a bit of a litmus test because the people that are really sincere about closing the wealth gap, it seems to me, the people that are really sincere about the debt that was owed to us. We were promised 40 acres. We were promised other kinds of protection from the harms that we've seen unfolding, the terror that we've seen unfolding, and our land being stolen, our wealth being stolen. Those things did not occur. I mean, your show is called The Reconstruction Project.
Yeah, right.
The Reconstruction was a fail. The promises were not kept. It is a debt, as Randall Robinson brilliantly defined it in his book. And so I think whether or not you stand for any kind of cash compensation has become somewhat of a litmus test about how sincere you are about repairing the harm, not just of enslavement, but of the subsequent harms of Jim Crow and you know, all the other policies that came forth from that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let me on an emotional level, I deeply sympathize with where that analysis is coming from, because just fundamentally, when there's a deep injustice committed between one human being and another, or one group of human beings and another, there is a moral need for repair. And that's really where I'm coming from on this question. The difference intellectually, which has political implications perhaps here about the differences between us and some of the folks who are right to chime in here, may in part start with the fact that I don't actually see the sort of framing as sort of like there was a legal breach of contract that now needs to be sort of repaired through financial restitution. I don't understand how that works on a technical sort of level, and this is actually important. So let me draw it up a little bit. It's important to remember, slavery is one of the deep and great and abiding moral abominations, not just of American history, but of so much of human history. So there's no undercounting or underplaying the severity of that as a transgression. Nevertheless, slavery was legal. Slavery was legal. And so on the basis of America having had slaves, it doesn't follow as a matter of how the law works.
But we fought a whole war, John Wood Jr., that was supposedly, at least in part, about eliminating enslavement because it was morally, ethically wrong. I know that wasn't the real and only reason for the war, but
again, it was
part of it. Right, it's complicated, but it's part of it. Supposedly Lincoln freed the slaves. We fought a war. When you win a war, to the victor go the spoils. But what did we do? We paid reparations to slaveholders. We ended up giving them back the land that was given to Blac Americans, that was supposed to be given to us. There was a whole Freedmen's Bureau erected to undo those harms. And there was special field order by General Sherman and other things that were within the Freedmen's Act that established that bureau that were supposed to go to us. Those were legal contracts after slavery was no longer the law of the land, and they were reneged upon. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
President Johnson said F you to Blac America, and so that Andrew contract Johnson, was broken.
Yes. So let me jump into that. You and I are largely on the same page there. I'm just making the point that brings us, and you know, there's some complexity in there. I heard you mention Special Order 40.
15.
Was
I think it's 15.
Okay, General Sherman's, which is really where the 40 acres and a mule compensation comes from. The Freedmen's Bureau, the regime of Reconstruction. So the thing to understand is this history is vital, right? Because it was in the Reconstruction era that the larger societal commitment to not only preserve the liberty of emancipated slaves, but to bring them to something of closer to an equal footing in a way that would repair the injustice of slavery was meant to be acted upon. And, Andrew Johnson, having taken over for Abraham Lincoln after he was assassinated.
I mean, he was the Trump of his time.
that analogy may hold in a number of ways. He was at the spear tip of undermining that effort. It was undermined from many directions. It was also a massively difficult effort, and it collapsed. And so, yes, the reason my show is called The Reconstruction Project and the reason that history matters to me And the reason I see things the way I described them a moment ago in terms of wanting to overhaul the bipartisan whole of our politics in some sense in order to center on an agenda of repair in the Black community is in part to make good on that history. Just as a technical matter, I would point out that the 40 acres and a mule was a policy that was enacted in the field that was something that was initially committed to by General Sherman that didn't have the full buy-in of the federal government, and that in any event, the federal government had the power to rescind. So I don't see that as a strong sort of legal basis for, and, you know, by the way, Sandy Darity,
who was on this show about 4 weeks ago, arguing just the opposite of what you just said, and he makes a compelling argument, I must say.
But that's what I'm getting to Sandy's argument, insofar as I understand it, because Sandy does, I think, and by the way, I don't know him personally. I'd love to speak to him because he's a brilliant man, and I know he could teach me some things. But my understanding of part of Sandy's argument is that, you know, one way in which you can reasonably calculate the amount owed to Black people in terms of potential cash reparations is on the basis of extrapolating the growth in real estate value, starting from if 40 acres and a mule had been carried out, how much would those land holdings be worth now in the present day? And he uses that to arrive at a sort of figure.
That's only one calculation.
That's only one,
because
right,
the main argument he made on this show was
versions.
about the wealth gap.
Yes,
yeah.
right, yeah, and he's focused on closing the wealth gap as sort
right.
of the center of the bullseye, which I also disagree with, even though I do want to see the wealth gap shrink. But I
shrink, not close.
Well, I say shrink because I'm sure I'd be fine to see it close. I'd be fine to see Black people exceed white people potentially. But my only point there is that wealth is not the most important indicator of actual human flourishing, and so I do think, you know, that becomes an important thing. What is? Well, quality of life. Quality of life, which has
wealth
more
has
to
everything to do with
with
quality of life.
Well, it doesn't have everything to do with it, but it is a very important and necessary. So it's a necessary,
if you have food, you're going to have a better quality of life than if you don't.
Oh, absolutely.
If you have education, if you have water.
Necessary but not sufficient. Necessary but not sufficient.
Not soul.
Necessary but not sufficient. But to just bring it back to 40 acres and a mule and so forth, I'm just saying that we oftentimes make these arguments for reparations on the basis of suggesting that there's like a legal contract that was broken, that the United States government never made good on its obligation.
And I believe that. Absolutely believe that.
I think as long as you're making that argument, you actually the larger reparations agenda, and of course I'm fleshing out my own view of what I would like it to be. But as long as it's based on that argument, I actually think it's much weaker than we would want it to be, because it's really harder to defend in those legal terms. The Japanese, people mentioned the Japanese. Some of our callers here mentioning the Japanese internment programs in World War II and the reparations paid to them. That was an explicit violation of protections in the United States Constitution.
Yeah,
and it was clear in real time what the legal infringement was. It's just harder to make that case with respect to African American reparations.
Well, I think Dr. Darity does it brilliantly, but we will continue this conversation after news, traffic, and sports. It's John Wood Jr., Dominique DiPrima, Freedmen Friday, KBLA, Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Authorities released video of the suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination, showing him leaping from a rooftop near Utah Valley University. Utah Governor Spencer Cox says the public's help is needed.
We cannot do our job without the public's help right now. So far, we've received more than 7,000 leads and tips.
President Trump tells Fox News this morning he's fairly certain they have the real person responsible in custody. Former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre testifies today in the GOP probe of President Biden's mental fitness and use of an auto pen for pardons. Republicans claim some pardons could be invalid. And former NBA player Jason Collins is being treated for a brain tumor. Collins, the first openly gay athlete in a major U.S. sports league, played 13 seasons in the NBA. The Nets and league have shared messages of support. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Live the thrill of Guatemalan Heritage Night at Dodger Stadium on September 9th versus the Rockies. Watch the boys in blue, enjoy marimba music, and experience tradition. Score a unique Guatemalan night jersey with the purchase of a special ticket package. Visit Dodgers.com/promotions.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks had a rough ending to their season Thursday night at Crypto.com. They ran into the hottest team in the WNBA. The Las Vegas Aces will take a 16-game winning streak into the playoffs after beating the Sparks 103-75. Fifth straight losing season for the Sparks. They finished the season at 21-23. The 21 wins is the most for the Sparks since winning 22 games in 2019. Impressive game for Las Vegas. They set a single-game WNBA record with 22 three-pointers. The Angels lost to Seattle 7-6 in 12 innings. Angel star Mike Trout hit his 399th career homer. The 15-year veteran has 15 games left in the regular season to reach 400. The Dodgers start a 3-game series tonight at San Francisco. The Dodgers have won 4 straight. They lead San Diego by 2.5 games in the NL West. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
So many things, big and little, make you uniquely you. Your hobbies, dreams, career, family, and more. Addiction to drugs, including opioids and stimulants, can strip these away from you. Recover your life. Choose treatment for drug addiction and get back to what matters most. Find a provider and proven treatment option that's right for you at ChooseChangeCA.org. Recover you.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community-focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
We're talking with John Wood Jr. Can I call you a Cornel West Republican?
You can. You know what? You can call me a Cornel West Republican. I will take that. I will gladly take that.
You actually
label.
did vote for him, even though you are a registered Republican. We're talking reparations.
I am. Yeah.
It's a Freedmen Friday, and you were talking about. And I've heard this argument. I got to say, because I've been doing this for almost 2 years, a lot. Well, the Japanese had a very specific blah 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 blah. Okay, we have a lot of specifics too. Read the California Task Force report. I mean, some folks are saying we don't need H.R. 40. A lot of reparations activists are saying this now because we already have the California study. And it's not just based on enslavement, and it's not just based on Special Field Order 15. It's largely based on Jim Crow and the subsequent locking out of Black Americans from not only repair but even thriving on our own on an equal playing field, and the stealing and plundering of our resources.
So can I make a comment about that?
Absolutely.
And by the way, I can't hear myself in my headphones,
sorry.
so I don't. I just want to make sure that the people are hearing me.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I do think that I'm sure you are right that once you get beyond the era of slavery, the legal arguments do become stronger. I mean, there's a lot that you can plausibly argue with respect to reparations as repair for direct legal enfranchisement, probably just stemming right from the 14th Amendment and the subsequent Supreme Court ruling on separate but equal. That's separate but equal. The idea of it, I could see plausibly argued as an infringement upon the 14th Amendment and the rights of equal citizenship. So I don't want to just blanketly disparage the idea that there's no reparations argument to be made on a legal basis. I do think that there's some substance to it once you get beyond slavery, and so this is an important nuance. But here's the other thing I'd say. I'm not opposed to people making those arguments, but I think at the end of the day, what I am after is an agenda that centers repairing the impacts of the historic injustices of slavery and achieving a foundation for the flourishing of Black people and Black communities, which is necessary to the flourishing of the American people and American communities, right? In a way that transforms the larger political and social conversation in America, but that requires winning the buy-in of the American people, which means winning the moral argument as well as the social and practical argument, right? And so the legal arguments that can be used as a grounds for establishing reparative remunerations towards Black people are less important to me, though they may be valid and may be legitimate in so many specific cases. It's less important to me than making a larger argument to sway the nation towards reinvesting in the project of repair for Black America. And that's the way I would like us to begin to think about reparations.
So it sounds like you're
broadly
talking about we have to talk America into giving a crap and helping to repair the harm that was done by hundreds of years of our enslavement and keep waiting for someone else to fix it rather than demanding that the debt that is owed to us be paid so we can move on, so America can move on. I think reparations, not just cash, but definitely including cash, doesn't just help Black America. It helps all of America. We can move on. You know, we can try to move on. And I don't think it's the only thing. I think there's spiritual, there's psychological, there's all kinds of harms that have been done, and those harms have also been done to the perpetrators. You know, so pay your debt, and then let's try to move on.
Well, we have to succeed in the arena of democracy.
But why should we keep waiting and waiting and waiting, John?
And the reason
it's been, 1865. It's been a minute. Like, we're just going to keep waiting for America to do the right thing, convincing them that it's the right thing to do instead of just. It's like these.
I'm not sure how we're defining. It depends on how we're defining waiting.
Because when you say waiting means we have to convince America that this is a good idea. I've seen the polling. White America doesn't believe in reparations. I don't care. If you owe me a debt, you have to pay me whether it's popular or not. You don't get to say, well, this isn't popular, so I'm not going to pay you back.
So if I have somebody in my life who owes me some money. I lent you $100.
Let's say they steal your house, for example.
Well, okay.
They steal your house. You have nowhere to live. You and your wife and children, you're out on the streets.
Well,
and then they say, that was my granddad that stole your house, and I don't live in that house anymore, so I don't know.
There are a lot of analogies that we could come up with to speak to the issue of reparations. I'm making a simpler point.
Okay.
If somebody
$100
owes me $100,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
From years ago.
Why such a paltry sum?
They just to make the point simple.
It doesn't make the point. It's a huge, but it's a bigger impact on your life than $100.
Maybe I'm gonna peep the point that I'm making. And this person is, bigger than me, got a lot of muscle and so forth. And I know he owes me this money. I know he should give it to me. I know I should have it by right. If I come up to him and shout in his face and say, you owe me this money, pay up, I shouldn't have to wait for it, and he looks me dead in my face and says no, well, then I can say that I've got a right to keep shouting at him, and I do have a right to keep shouting at him, but it's probably not going to give me my money back.
We're not shouting. We've passed legislation. We're moving forward from a legal standpoint, from a policy standpoint.
I understand, but the point I'm trying to make is a little bit bigger than that. The point I'm trying to make is that if this man is going to give me my money back, and I do not have the means to coerce him to give my money back, which I don't, I must persuade him. Right. By the way, if I had the means to coerce him to give the money back, he might still want to come back and take the money back from me later on. So coercion is not truly a solution in the long-term arc of society and human relationships.
If the $100 is back in your account, though, it's definitely better than it not being back in your account.
Unless it leads to the guy coming back and robbing me again, or maybe killing me tomorrow.
He's going to do that anyway.
Well, but this is the question. Because I do think that in the long arc of American history and human history, as we augment our ability to engage one another democratically and persuasively, we do create the space whereby societal conditions can be changed through democratic process. Right. But it requires a moral and persuasive element.
The reason I'm laughing is because look at where we are right now in America. Is this the time for that argument?
But snap the photo and compare it to where we were in 1835 or 1865.
What's your point?
My point is that
we're lucky we're not enslaved.
My point is that progress is never a straight line. It's never a straight line.
Yeah, well, we know that in this moment of time.
The thing that, absolutely, in this moment of time is testament to that fact.
Yep.
We are on the backswing. But the advantage of being on the backswing is that it does give you the opportunity to pause and reflect, regroup, and reorient, and maybe proceed from a place of a deeper understanding of what is true.
And what
is
true
that is that there is still the possibility, I believe, of making a moral argument and a social argument that informs a political agenda that can actually move the mainstream of American society. It may or may not move the mainstream of American society to want to write a $14 trillion check, but we could generate more important than that, political agendas across the aisle that on every level of policy and social concern begin to center the interests of black people.
You make everything sound good and you make everything complicated. Let me simplify it. It sounds like you're saying we have to wait for white people to be okay with our repair and convince them to somehow have this magical egalitarian multiracial democracy, which we haven't gotten since 1776. So we're going to wait another couple hundred years and see if we can convince white folks and the so-called broader society that we deserve to be made whole.
But I think,
as Jerry Anderson says in the chat, $100 stolen way back then, and then another 100 every day ever since. That adds up.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing is, you can't be passive with respect to your own interests. So I agree with Jerry.
So you're still gonna fight the guy that took the 100.
You want to find every means of resistance that you can morally employ. And at a certain point, if violence is put upon you and that's your only means of response, then yes, as a last resort, violence itself must be on the table. But of course, if violence becomes the status quo, then we have a society no longer. But I think that where I would critique what you're saying, Dominique, is in the implication that by defining refusing to wait as pursuing strategies that are primarily legal and sort of, in an activistic way, confrontation-based, the implication is that that is going to shorten the length of time that we have to wait. And I'm arguing that that is going to make the length of time we have to wait longer in the long run.
Well, but we have legislation on the table right now.
Well,
in
look,
California, they're paying reparations in Evanston, albeit they're small. There are reparations commissions and councils being set up in cities across the country. There are at least 3 states that already have them. It's moving. The issue is moving.
And meanwhile, nationwide, the entire social justice agenda has been set back a generation within the last 4 years, post-Black Lives Matter. The overall
we're not post-Black Lives Matter, by the way. Black Lives Matter is alive and well.
Well,
there's no post-Black Lives Matter.
Post the zenith of Black Lives Matter in the cultural zeitgeist.
Well, let's make sure that zenith crap is in there, because there's more Black Lives Matter chapters now than ever in history. 52.
Yes, ma'am. My point, though, is that for as much as was not accomplished with the civil rights movement and the nonviolent movement of the 1960s, the general legal and cultural shifts that took place in that era in the direction of greater equality for all people, but spearheaded by African Americans, has proved to be remarkably durable, even in a nation as deeply rooted as we are in a history of white supremacy.
I take that point. I think what Martin Luther King was able to accomplish and what the civil rights movement in that period was able to accomplish changed America, not just for black people, for everybody.
Absolutely. And fundamentally, on a philosophical bedrock level, that is what I am trying to get us back to.
And reparations now. I think we can walk and chew gum. I don't think we have to put the debt that's owed to us on hold until we're able to accomplish until we wait for the next Martin Luther King or the next level up of our democracy to where it should be, to the promise of our Constitution.
I want people to make the arguments that they believe in. Right, so I'm not going to. I'm not trying to disparage the reparations agenda, but I will try and persuade people towards what I believe in. And my views and learnings continue to evolve and develop over time. But I do believe that when you look at, there's so many tiers of frankly, sort of black. Disadvantage in American society and suffering, frankly. But if you look at the most vulnerable communities in Black America and that disproportionate level of poverty that is multi-generational in American society that became deeper and worse in the aftermath of the civil rights movement, even as the black middle class also grew, what you find is that it is the faltering of under-resourced institutions, the educational system, obviously the criminal justice system and law enforcement, even the church, even the ministry and so forth, local economies, the outsourcing of jobs that used to be in black communities. There is a project of repair that has to be probably particular to Detroit, to Chicago, to black communities in the South that needs to bring in a multi-sector sort of engagement, I think, to fix. And that does, I think, have a role for federal public policy to be supportive of. There's a sociologist named, because I think it's
you're going macro, and it's almost like
I'm going macro.
You're evading the concrete. AB 57 just passed out of the state legislature. This is a bill that would actually create funds for homeowners It's actually almost like a reiteration of a bill that Senator Bradford put forth as part of the reparations package last year. It will go to the governor's desk. It's passed out of the assembly. This is meant to address the housing discrimination, redlining, the racial covenants of Jim Crow.
Yeah, so
the harms of enslavement. It's here now.
So that might very well be a good thing.
It is a
and
good thing.
I'd love to look into that further.
A community is going to be
tell him to sign it. A community is going to be, and that can be a piece of a larger strategy that leverages potentially federal policy, but I also think very necessarily private capital and the role of even nonprofit and faith-based institutions in restoring schools and restoring ministries as a center of communal and social activity in Black communities. That creates a bedrock of a wellspring of social capital in Black communities that can enable economic mobility in a highly networked modern society. What I'm trying to get at is the fact that the actual project of repairing the wounds of Black communities is multifaceted. And I know a lot of people advocate for reparations without necessarily thinking like this is the end-all be-all of what's going to solve our problems in Black America. But I'm trying to get people to engage with the multi-dynamic complexity of that project. And then, frankly, to also win white people over to that project, to make white people understand that there is a role for every sector of society that would be of benefit to them if they were to engage in it from the philanthropic side, from the business side. But you have to be able to engage white people and all people in those sectors in a way that calls them into the solution, to extend the nonviolent philosophy of activism in a direction that reaches not just into politics, but into these other sectors in a way that creates a coalition of goodwill that can result
I got to stay on my clock here.
For me, that is a reparative agenda.
I don't disagree. I'm fine with calling white folks in. I'm not fine with waiting for them, depending on them, or saying that it's not okay until they agree with it.
Don't wait to persuade.
I'm not going to wait until they're good with reparations, because that we might be waiting.
Well, I'm
forever.
not saying that. I'm all about persuasion. I'm all about reaching out to the conscience. Right? It's just a question of, you can say you're not waiting. Yeah, don't wait, but don't be in a hurry to go about things in a less than perfect, well, in a less than optimal way, in a less than best possible way.
So let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
I shouldn't say perfect. In a less than best possible way. Right?
Okay. We'll continue this conversation when we come forward. It's a Freedmen Friday on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Imagine a world without heart disease and stroke, where every person has the chance to live a full and healthy life. Join us for a walk to save lives at the American Heart Association's Greater Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Saturday, September 20th at the Rose Bowl. Every step made and every dollar raised means more people learning CPR, more life-saving research, and more time with the ones we love. Sign up at heartwalkla.org. The LA Heart and Stroke Walk is sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health. September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Man, we eat up the clock, John Wood Jr. It just disappears.
We was having good conversations in the break. I'm sorry we didn't.
Yeah, we should have
capture
recorded
that.
it. We should have gone live. Okay, so
yeah,
tight on time here. Freedmen Friday, you referenced other things that you consider as important, if not more important, than cash, that in terms of our repair. As Blac Americans, as freedmen, as descendants of enslaved persons. Freedmen being a legal category. That's how we were designated after slavery was
that's right.
supposedly abolished. So what are those other areas of repair?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's the right question. I mean, I think that categorically we need to have specific portfolios for our strategic thinking. I do think that in my view, there are three vital starting institutions in most communities, and certainly in Black communities, two of which are generally available to sort of public engagement. But it's the educational system, the ministerial sector. I do believe that the church is a vital institution in this question. Nah, everybody doesn't have to be religious. That's not the point. It's about its role in communities. And then the criminal justice sector, the arena of law enforcement. Now, what has to be added to that, add a fourth, it's just a diffuse sector, but the economic domain in terms of employment, right? So then the question becomes, if you are looking to strengthen, it's not just these four, but if you're just looking to strengthen these four things, what are the preconditions for doing that? I will tell you that money alone is definitely not enough in any of those directions. Because in each area you have to reform you have to solve for not just a resource problem, but policies and practices that are dysfunctional in each of those areas, and ultimately reforming the culture of human relationships that exists in the criminal justice arena, in the educational arena, in the ministerial arena, and then in the economic sector. Part of what we have to find a way to happen is to either create opportunities within the communities that people live in, or to give them access to opportunities that exist within reach of where they live. Because part of what happened, this is an underappreciated, I mean, Sandy Darity, I'm sure, would be able to speak to this, but this is an underappreciated reality of what happened to us post-civil rights. Demographically speaking, Blac Americans historically lived in the South and in rural communities. By the end of the civil rights movement, for reasons not particularly related to that movement for the most part, the majority of Black people moved into inner cities where there were large manufacturing and service sector economies that then started to dissolve as soon as Black people got into them. And so what that wound up meaning was that these became economic deserts. And this is against the backdrop of the drug epidemic, mass incarceration. And I would make, reference to the impact of the Great Society in terms of dependency programs. We would argue on that. My point is that we are living in hollowed out shells that we were, in a sense, corralled in by circumstances with an absence of opportunity in a way that's just supposed to keep sort of Black people contained, in a sense, whether people meant it to be that way or not. And to a certain degree, people did mean it to be that way. But whether they meant it to be that way or not, that's the way it is. And so the question is, how do you grow a garden out of a patch of desert? How do you grow a garden out of a patch of dirt? And it is multilateral. And I think that we can summon intellectual and creative energies to begin to sort of look at the project in this way. Reparations in terms of remuneration can definitely be a part of that, I think.
Okay,
but it doesn't serve as a totality of a Black agenda.
John Wood Jr., I'm up against the clock. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
News, traffic, and sports. Then open phones, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Authorities released video of the suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination showing him leaping from a rooftop near Utah Valley University. Utah Governor Spencer Cox says the public's help is needed.
We cannot do our job without the public's help right now. So far, we've received more than 7,000 leads and tips.
President Trump tells Fox News this morning he's fairly certain they have the real person responsible in custody. Former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre testifies today in the GOP probe of President Biden's